The lunchtime crowd at the small town diner buzzed with quiet chatter and clinking cutlery. The sun poured through the wide glass windows, casting golden patterns across the linoleum floor. At a corner booth sat a man in his late 30s, his dark blue shirt slightly wrinkled from a long morning shift at the auto shop. His name was Ethan Cross, a single dad raising a 7-year-old girl named Mia, whose smile was the only thing that kept his weary heart alive. He was stirring his coffee absent-mindedly when the door chimed, and silence seemed to follow for just a moment. A tall woman entered, her posture sharp and commanding, yet her eyes tired, the kind of tired that came from years of carrying invisible weight. Her uniform said it all, General Helena Ward, 4 silver stars gleaming on her shoulder. She had once been the pride of the military, the kind of leader soldiers whispered about with reverence, but today she walked quietly, almost trying to disappear. Her daughter, a little girl of about 6, clung to her hand, eyes wide and curious. They took a booth 2 tables away from Ethan and Mia. The general ordered only 1 plate, a small sandwich, and black coffee for herself. Mia noticed first. The girl across the room, thin and pale, was watching her intently. Not her, actually her plate. Mia's meal was simple scrambled eggs, toast, and a few fries, but the other girl's eyes followed each bite with quiet longing. Ethan caught that gaze too, and something inside him ached. He recognized that kind of look, the look of a child pretending not to be hungry. If you believe in kindness and second chances, take a moment to like, comment, share, and subscribe to Soul of Light, where every story reminds us that goodness still exists in this world. Ethan hesitated for a moment, not wanting to embarrass anyone, but his heart wouldn't let him stay quiet. He waved to the waitress, nodded toward the general's table, and said softly, "Can you bring another kid's plate, same as this one?" When the waitress looked confused, he added, "Just tell her it's on the house." The general noticed, of course. Her trained eyes missed nothing. She turned toward him, their gazes locking across the room. For a brief moment, Ethan thought she might refuse, pride flashing behind those battle-hardened eyes. But then her daughter tugged gently at her sleeve, whispering something only a mother could hear. Helena exhaled and gave a small nod of gratitude, her voice steady but soft as she said, "Thank you." When the food arrived, the little girl's face lit up like sunlight breaking through clouds. Ethan smiled at Mia, who smiled back, happy to see another child's joy. It was a small gesture, but in that diner it meant everything. After a few minutes, the general stood and approached Ethan's table. "You didn't have to do that," she said quietly. Her tone was calm, disciplined, but her eyes carried something deeper, exhaustion, maybe shame, maybe both. Ethan smiled faintly. "Maybe I didn't, but sometimes doing something small makes the day a little easier for someone." Helena looked at him for a long moment, as if trying to read what kind of man he was. "I'm Helena," she said finally, "and this is Clara." The girl peeked from behind her mother's uniform, shyly waving. "I'm Ethan," he replied, "and this troublemaker here is Mia." They exchanged polite smiles, and for a brief while they talked. It turned out Helena had just retired from the army 2 weeks ago, quietly, without ceremony, after 25 years. She said, her voice barely above a whisper, "You think they'd at least say goodbye properly, but I guess that's how life works. You give everything, and sometimes you just walk away alone." Ethan listened, something in her words hitting close to home. He had given everything too, not to the military, but to life itself. After his wife died in a car accident 4 years ago, he had learned to survive on the edge of exhaustion, juggling work and fatherhood. "Maybe not everyone walks away alone," he said gently. "Sometimes you just haven't met the people who see you yet." That afternoon, as the sunlight softened, Ethan noticed the general's car outside an old sedan that coughed smoke when she tried to start it. Without thinking twice, he walked out, rolled up his sleeves and offered to help. "Looks like your starter's sticking," he said. Helena frowned but eventually stepped aside, watching as Ethan worked with quiet determination. Within minutes, the engine hummed back to life. Clara clapped her hands with excitement. "Mom, he fixed it." Helena smiled, the first real smile he'd seen on her face. "Seems like you're good at saving people," she said. Ethan chuckled. "Nah, just fixing cars." But she looked at him as if she saw something more. Over the next few weeks, Helena and Ethan crossed paths often, sometimes by chance, sometimes not. Their daughters had quickly become inseparable, spending afternoons drawing, laughing, or chasing each other around the park. Helena would sit nearby, watching the two girls play, while Ethan handed her a cup of coffee and said something that made her laugh, a sound she hadn't heard from herself in years. But beneath her growing warmth, there was still a storm Helena didn't let anyone see. Nightmares of soldiers she couldn't save, the weight of decisions that haunted her. She had always been the strong one, the leader, the one others leaned on. But now, stripped of her uniform and purpose, she didn't know who she was anymore. One afternoon, as the kids played, she confessed quietly, "I spent half my life leading men into battles, but nothing prepared me for peace. Peace feels empty." Ethan looked at her for a long moment. "Maybe peace isn't empty," he said softly. "Maybe it's just waiting for something new to fill it." That night, Helena sat in her small rented house, thinking about his words. She looked at Clara sleeping beside her and realized what she'd been running from, not the army, not her past, but herself. The next morning, she knocked on Ethan's door, a small box in her hand. Inside it were her medals, polished, heavy, symbols of a life built on sacrifice. "I'm not sure who I am without these," she said. Ethan took the box gently, set it aside, and handed her a wrench instead. "Then maybe start by fixing something small," he said with a smile. "It worked for me." From that day, Helena began volunteering at the local community center, helping veterans adjust to civilian life. Her leadership returned, not in battlefields, but in quiet rooms filled with people learning to heal. Ethan watched her transform, her strength now grounded in compassion instead of command, and through her he began to believe that maybe life offered more than just survival. Months passed, and their friendship deepened into something unspoken but undeniable. One crisp afternoon, as the girls shared ice cream under the autumn sun, Helena looked at Ethan and said, "Funny how life works. I spent years commanding thousands of soldiers, but it took one mechanic and a little girl to remind me what courage really looks like." Ethan smiled, eyes warm. "And it took a four-star general to show me that broken things and people can shine again when they're held with care." When Helena's new veterans program was launched, the entire town gathered at the community center. She stood on stage, in civilian clothes this time, holding a small speech card. But when she began to speak, her voice trembled. She looked toward the crowd, then at Ethan and Mia sitting in the front row. "For a long time, I thought strength meant standing alone," she said. "But sometimes true strength is letting someone see you, really see you, when you've lost your way. And sometimes kindness from a stranger is the first step home." The audience rose in applause, but it was Ethan's quiet smile that grounded her. In that moment, both knew something had shifted forever. As the evening light painted the sky, Helena, Clara, Ethan, and Mia walked together through the park. The girls ran ahead, laughing, their voices echoing through the open air. For the first time in years, Helena didn't feel like she was leaving quietly anymore. She was arriving at a place where love, friendship, and quiet acts of kindness rebuilt what life had once broken. If this story touched your heart, please take a moment to like, share, and subscribe to Soul of Light. Every story here reminds us that even strangers can change each other's lives through compassion and grace. Special request: drop a comment below and tell us, do you believe that small acts of kindness can change someone's world? Because sometimes it only takes one shared meal to remind us all what humanity truly means.